A very good afternoon to you, dear viewers. You're watching Channel 2. Now it's time for this English News Bulletin. This is Reem Tamer, and we start right away with the headlines. Hajj pilgrims perform stoning of devil at Jamarat on first day of al-Tashriq. Foreign Minister Abdulati reviews with his Cypriot and Nigerian counterparts bilateral ties, regional and international issues. 34 Palestinians martyred in new Israeli occupation massacres across Gaza Strip. Welcome back to the news in full. Muslim pilgrims continued Hajj rituals amid spiritual atmosphere full of serenity. Pilgrims threw the 3 stones on the first day of Tashriq, days after throwing the Great Aqaba stone on Friday, on the first day of Eid al-Adha. The pilgrims continue stoning the devil on the next 2 days, on the second and third days of Tashriq. More details to be followed.
Muslim pilgrims stone the devil as Hajj nears end in Saudi Arabia. Huge crowds of pilgrims stone the devil in the last major ritual of the Hajj pilgrimage as Muslims around the globe celebrated the beginning of Al-Adha holiday. Starting before dawn, 1.6 million plus pilgrims began throwing stones at 3 giant concrete walls symbolizing the devil at the Jamarat complex near the holy city of Mecca. Temperatures hit 42 degrees Celsius on Friday, still well below the high of 51.8 Celsius that caused major difficulties in 2024. A day earlier, pilgrims converged on Mount Arafat, praying and reciting Quranic verses at the 70-meter rocky rise where the Prophet Muhammad is believed to have given his last sermon. Many climbed the mount despite the searing heat, though numbers had thinned by midday following official warnings for them to stay inside between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That was one of a number of measures to avoid overexposure to the heat, including expanding shaded areas, providing thousands more medics, and installing hundreds of cooling units. Authorities have mobilized more than 40 government agencies and 250,000 officials, doubling their efforts against the heat-related illness. Shaded areas have been expanded by 50,000 square meters, thousands more medics will be on standby, and more than 400 cooling units will be deployed.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Egyptian expatriates Badr Abdel-Ati hailed historical ties binding Egypt and Cyprus and said he is looking forward to enhance bilateral cooperation. In a phone call with his Cypriot counterpart, Konstantinos Kombos, Abdel-Ati also expressed his appreciation to Cyprus' support to Egypt and the EU institutions, especially regarding the EU financial package offered to Egypt. The two sides also exchanged points of view over a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern. The two top diplomats agreed on the necessity of continuing coordination to decrease instability in the region. Foreign Minister Badr Abdel-Ati expressed his appreciation to remarkable and historical ties between Egypt and Nigeria. In a phone call conversation, Foreign Minister Abdel-Ati pointed to his Nigerian counterpart that Egypt is looking forward to build on the available opportunities and capabilities in both countries to achieve a leap in the bilateral relations. The two foreign ministers also exchanged visions regarding the latest developments in the African arena. Abdel-Ati expressed Egypt's readiness to offer all needed support facing terrorism and extremism, facing security threats in the Sahel area. In a new Israeli massacre in Gaza Strip, Israeli occupation targeted a house in Sabra neighborhood, southern Gaza City. Palestinian civil defense said the strike targeted a house with children and civilians inside. Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has said that all its aid distribution sites in the Gaza Strip were closed and a reopening date would be announced later, urging residents to stay away from these sites for their safety. Work at the sites was halted in response to a series of deadly shootings by the Israeli occupation troops. The group began distributing aid last week. However, repeated bloody attacks and shootings by the occupation troops forced organizers to halt their activities for the safety of Palestinians. Lebanon accused the Israeli occupation forces of a flagrant ceasefire violation by launching strikes against Hezbollah in southern Beirut. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, in a statement, voiced firm condemnation of the Israeli occupation aggression and flagrant violation of an international accord. The Israeli occupation forces warned that it would keep striking Lebanon until Hezbollah was being disarmed. It was the fourth heaviest bombardment of the heavily populated area since a ceasefire deal between Hezbollah and the Israeli occupation troops. A large Russian drone and missile attack targeted Ukraine's eastern city of Kharkiv today, killing at least 5 people and injuring 22. The barrage is the latest in near daily wide-scale attacks, included aerial bombs that have become part of a fierce Russian attack in the 3-year conflict. The intensity of the Russian attacks on Ukraine over the past weeks has further dampened hopes that the warring sides could reach a peace deal anytime soon, especially after Kiev recently embarrassed the Kremlin with a surprising drone attack on military airfields deep inside Russia. According to Ukraine's Air Force, Russia struck with 215 missiles and drones overnight, and Ukrainian air defenses shot down and neutralized 87 drones and 7 missiles. Meanwhile, Moscow governor said that 2 people were injured after a drone attack by Ukraine overnight, with 9 drones shot down. The Russian Defense Ministry said that since midnight, air defense units had intercepted and destroyed 36 Ukrainian drones over Russian territory, including the Moscow region. Russia has said that a Ukrainian drone attack deep inside Russian territory last weekend likely damaged around 10% of Russia's strategic bomber fleet and hit some of the aircraft as they were being prepared for strikes on Ukraine. Moving to the world of economy, Japan said today that it was making progress in talks aimed at easing U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs, but cautioned that the 2 sides have not found a point of agreement yet. Japan, U.S. biggest investor, is subject to the 10% baseline tariffs imposed on most nations, plus steeper levies on cars, steel and aluminium. Trump also announced an additional 24% reciprocal tariff on Japan in early April, but later posed it along with similar measures on other countries until early July. Japan wants all levies announced by Trump lifted. Japan's economy, the world's 4th largest, contracted 0.2% in the first quarter of 2025, adding to pressure on the government ahead of upper house elections expected in July. Russia's central bank cut its key interest rate to 20%, down from a 2-decade high of 21%, as the economy slows, and officials say that months of rapid price rises are coming under control. Also, Russia's economy has been marked by volatility since it launched this full-scale military operation on Ukraine in 2022, with growth now slowing after a period of what officials called overheating. According to official statistics, the weakest reading in 2 years' annual growth slowed to 1.4% in the first quarter. Russian economists have warned for months that falling oil prices, high interest rates and downturn in manufacturing were all weighing on the economy. In commodities markets, oil prices edged higher, registering the first weekly gain driven by supply concerns and U.S. jobs data. U.S. crude futures last up 0.4% at $63.63 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate added 1.7% at $64.45 per barrel. Gold prices dipped 0.1% to $3.349 on ounce as the U.S. jobs report clouded the outlook for rate cuts from the Federal Reserve. Moving to the exciting world of sports, Cairo Giants Al Ahly held their first training session in Miami, the United States, ahead of the highly anticipated match with Inter Miami in the FIFA's newly expanded Club World Cup, which kicks off in Miami on June 14th. The 2025 FIFA Club World Cup features some of the most prominent clubs from leagues all over the world. The competition begins on Saturday, June 14th, with the Lionel Messi and Inter Miami hosting Al Ahly, which has won 3 recent CAF Champions League titles. Under new Spanish coach José Ribeiro, the Reds are due to have a friendly encounter with Mexican Pachuca tomorrow. Tottenham fired manager Andriy Postecoglou 2 weeks after the Australian led the club to the Europa League title to end its 17-year wait. This brings us to the end of this English News Bulletin. Came to you out of Channel 2. That was Dream Tamer. Now it's time to say thank you for watching.